Hey everyone, it's Randip and Dan with another video, and this time we're focusing on defensemen and defensemen that could be available this coming off season. We got to start with Dougie Hamilton. Elliot Friedman broke the news this past weekend, talking about how he can talk to other teams and they can explore maybe a sign and trade, a trade and sign deal. So this is something that is going to be an important issue now heading into the offseason. Where does Dougie Hamilton land? And Dan, the first question I have for you, though, is he the best available defenseman on the market?
I think he is. Like, who else would be in that conversation? It's got to be Dougie Hamilton, and if you're looking at the trade angle, Seth Jones?
I think so.
So it's between those two. And look, there's a real hockey conversation to be had between the two players. Would you rather have Dougie Hamilton or Seth Jones? They're two very good, elite defensemen even. But I'm still taking Dougie Hamilton. There is no defenseman that's got more goals scored than Dougie Hamilton over the last few years, and that's even with the significant leg injury he had. He has been that good for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I know, there was a lot of debate about him earlier in his and everything that happened in Calgary and whatnot, but he's really shored up his two-way game as well here with Carolina. And I think if you're looking at Dougie Hamilton, you have to have a lot of cap space, and you're going to be looking at paying him kind of Alex Pietrangelo money in free agency. Am I wrong on that?
That to me is a little steep, but you might be right. Hey, the economics of the game might be back to that point where some owners are able to free up that money. That to me sounds a little steep. I love the way he plays. Two-way defenseman. He can put up 40 points in the season. He's really good. But if you're talking about the best available defenseman, Dougie Hamilton to me is number 2 on that list. The price of acquisition is going to be maybe pretty low based on depending on what happens with the contract. But guys, Seth Jones is still available. He's a player that looks like he's going to be on his way out at some point in Columbus. So this is a guy that I know some people are saying he might have dropped off, but he's 2 years removed from Norris contention. He's still young. He's still got it. So I think with Dougie Hamilton, you're probably looking in that $7.5 million range. So maybe not far off from Pietrangelo, but Seth Jones is, in my opinion, the best available defenseman because this guy can eat those minutes for you, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, consistently in that top 5 of ice time. And when he's on a good team, and that's the key here, when he's on a good team, he can be your number 1D with a bullet.
My problem with Seth Jones is I feel like you're still going to have to pay premium price because of his reputation, because he had a Norris candidate level season a couple of years ago, even though he's coming off of 2 down years. Like, you're not paying a lesser price. You're still going to have to give probably a pretty good roster player, a pretty big prospect, and a first-round pick. And then you're going to have to give him the big contract on top of all that. That's a lot to pay for a defenseman that I think there should be question marks, more question marks, at least if he is really among the elite defensemen, as his reputation says. It kind of reminds me of Dion Phaneuf when he was in Calgary, had the Norris nomination, then he kind of had a couple of down years, went to Toronto. It never got better. He was fine. He was good, but he wasn't great. He never got back to that Norris level candidacy. And that's one worry I would have if I'm going to be acquiring Seth Jones, Randy.
I can't believe you went there. You went the Dion Phaneuf comparison to Seth Jones.
YouTube, we'll see if I'm wrong. See if I'm wrong.
Get him. Okay, you might be wrong on that one. I think you're going to be wrong on that. I think the disrespect for Seth Jones is a little high these days. He still can be an elite defenseman. Just remember, when you play on a bad team, your underlying statistics, your analytics, they don't look good. All right, those are the top 2. I think that's tier 1, but
I will say this, though, Randy. I will say this. You're probably not getting Seth Jones for like Matt Stajan and Keith Ollie and Jamal Mayers.
No, the market told you what Dion Phaneuf was at that point in his career. That's other GMs knew. I think Seth Jones will have a higher price. Also want to give a shout out here. Maybe not in that same tier, but a tier below. Tyson Barrie. He bet on himself last year, had to sign that 1-year deal, 48 points. Where does he rank in terms of the best available defenseman? We know he's an offensively inclined D, but there's a value there, Reach. There's guys on the power play, guys that can create offense. You need them on your team.
I just don't think you can. Like, not every team should be in on Tyson Barrie, right? I think we saw that with what happened in Toronto. and why he had so much success in Edmonton. You know, they needed a guy to run their top power play unit. and he was a perfect fit. So Tyson Barrie, I don't think there's like a blanket thought across the league like this guy can help us. Sure, he's still a really good defenseman, but I think fit is a big part of where Tyson Barrie will go. So I'm not ready to really put him in an elite tier. I think he's a guy that if you need a power play quarterback, Tyson Barrie is one of the guys you'll be looking at for sure in free agency. There's a couple of unknowns here too when it comes to the D market. You know, the expansion draft is going to cause a lot of defensemen to potentially become available. And you know, there's a couple in St. Louis, one really on the high end, kind of like Seth Jones, a year out from free agency. You think Colton Parayko is available this summer, Randy?
Okay, that's an X factor play for me because kind of like, you know, some of the defensemen we were mentioning, maybe not Dougie Hamilton, like Tyson Barrie, but kind of like Seth Jones, Colton Parayko could be a free agent after next year. And that is a huge issue for the St. Louis Blues. Remember, they give up Pietrangelo for nothing. You want to go down that same road with Colton Parayko. This guy is big. He's a shutdown D. And when he's good, he's real good. We saw with the St. Louis Blues the year that they won the Cup. And just over the years, he's a difference maker, and he can be that impact player. So to me, if he's available, yeah, he all of a sudden shoots up that list of, you know, a guy that can impact the game, doesn't have that offensive high end, but you need shutdown D. And Colton Parayko, that could be a game changer if he becomes available. Because if you're Armstrong in St. Louis, do you want to go down that road again where you give up a player for nothing? That team, they had their success, but you can tell they need a bit of a reshuffle. There might be some bold moves coming in the year. That's a name that I am definitely watching in St. Louis.
You know, there's one name, certainly for us here in Vancouver. We talked about it when it happened. Morgan Rielly. I know you always chirp me for wearing Vancouver t-shirts, but yeah. When Morgan Rielly does it, it's apparently it's okay. He did it in his end of season availability with the Maple Leafs. YVR plastered across his chest. Of course, he is from the area. He's a year out from free agency. Was it a bat signal like, hey, Vancouver, come and get me? That's how some people thought of it here. But look, the Leafs are in a tight cap situation. You wonder if they're going to be able to keep Morgan Rielly around. He might be a guy that they're almost forced to explore trading for the same reasons. They don't want to lose him for free.
Part of that is the discussions behind the scenes, right? What is Morgan Rielly and his agent speaking to the Leafs about? Do they have a appetite to stay there? And to be quite honest, do the Leafs want him there long-term as well? It's not like there's been a consensus on Morgan Rielly's play in Toronto. There have been some critics as well. And now that you have a TJ Brody there, you have Jake Muzzin.
Well, if they're not trading one of the forwards, who are they trading?
Well, that's the point, though. And a part of this is also Morgan Rielly. Is Toronto, he's had a good run there. Does he want to stay there? That's a valid question. So, yeah, that's another situation to watch. You have Parayko, who's the stud D in the sense of a shutdown defenseman. On the other side, you have a guy with offensive flair who can give you 60, 70 points, which he's done in his career. Can he consistently keep that up in Morgan Rielly? I don't know, but he's hit that. That's on his resume. That is a situation everybody will be watching closely. But all right, those are the high-end guys. Those are the guys that are going to get, you know, the money. They're going to, if they're acquired, it's going to be, you know, a boatload of picks and probably prospects. Let's go down a tier. Say you want a defenseman, but you don't want to pay that much. Not necessarily the discount bin here, Reach, but let's go a little bit cheaper. What are some other options that are out there?
Well, I think there's two names that immediately come to mind if I'm a team looking for, and we know that this is always a hot commodity around, a right shot D-man. Now, Mikhail Sergachev and Eric Chernak, I would imagine that Tampa Bay would like to keep both of them, but certainly would like to keep Mikhail Sergachev. But Eric Chernak has really been a solid stay-at-home D-man. They're going to have to potentially expose him in the expansion draft. So do they explore a trade before then to at least collect an asset out of that player? They're going to have some options. They can maybe maneuver some different things around. But I do wonder if that's a name that becomes available. And the other one, he's been in the trade block for a while now in Anaheim. He's had a tough couple of years with injury, but you put him on a contender again as a stay-at-home guy in your middle pair. I think Josh Manson would be awfully attractive to a lot of teams.
Yeah, especially contending teams that need that, maybe that second pair D that can occupy that right side, rough and tumble guy. He hasn't necessarily been playing at that level because, yeah, injuries is one thing, but Anaheim the last couple of years, they've definitely been going in reverse here. So hasn't been able to play meaningful games. But that's a guy I'm watching as well, because you could see maybe some salary retention there potentially as well to bring down that price. And on a short-term deal, Josh Manson would be pretty good for a lot of teams because you don't necessarily have to re-sign him. But it all comes down to price of acquisition. I think with Chernak as well, what are you giving up? Is it a second-round pick? Would Tampa Bay want a first-round pick, a late first-round pick? That's a pretty steep price. But it all depends on the price. Let us know who you think the best available defenseman is this year. Are you going to tier 1 or are you going to go further down in tier 2? Hit us up in the comments, like and subscribe. We'll catch you next time.